The Legend of Tarzan, which is directed by David Yates, who directed 4 of the 8 Harry Potter films and stars Alexander Skarsgård, Margot Robbie, Samuel L. Jackson, and Christoph Waltz. The story of this one is that it takes place after the whole Tarzan story that we know, but we do get it somewhat in flashbacks. So essentially what this one is Tarzan, also known as John Clayton now in the English world. He has to go back to the jungle in order to stop Christoph Waltz from mining all these precious diamonds and stuff like that inside the jungle. And it takes Samuel L. Jackson with him, and it's a big adventure, and this movie was actually a lot better than I thought it was going to be, and it really actually surprised me. Like I said, I very much enjoyed this film. It was very surprising. Like, I didn't expect it to be anything to what it was. I'm not the biggest Tarzan fan. I feel like Tarzan's been told the same time 1,000 times. But because this is more or less a sequel to that story, I feel like it kind of refreshed it a bit. I feel like Alexander Skarsgård by far played the best Tarzan. I think it was nice because it wasn't necessarily Disney's version of Tarzan, so you didn't have like Phil Collins playing every 5 minutes, and like it wasn't all cartoony. Like, he had interactions with animals, but they didn't talk. It was a much more realistic, I suppose, version of Tarzan. And the approach to it, the visuals were amazing. Alexander Skarsgård, like I said, was probably the best version of Tarzan. He did an amazing cast as far as that aspect went. Margot Robbie, I feel like I'm over Margot Robbie kind of eyes at the moment because it feels like she's in everything. She's like Benedict Cumberbatch. She's in Tarzan, she's in the upcoming Suicide Squad, she's in The Wolf of Wall Street. I feel like I've seen her everywhere, and I'm kind of just over it now. Samuel L. Jackson did a great job of like this comedic relief sort of thing, but he never said the one line I was hoping he was going to say, something along the lines of, "I'm tired of these motherfucking apes in this motherfucking jungle," something along those lines, but he never said it. I think it's PG-13, so he never said that. Christoph Waltz is an amazing actor. I feel like he was underutilized a lot, though. He plays a very generic villain, which I feel like they very much underutilized him lately, like Inspector and in this film. Christoph Waltz does an amazing villain. Take a look at Inglourious Basterds. It's awesome. But they way underutilized him in this film, and I feel like he was just played generic, nothing too exciting. Christoph Waltz has a lot of range, and I think that was just not carried throughout the film. The negatives of this film, I think, are some of the camera work. There were just certain aspects that were like, they would zoom into like Tarzan's eyes and then like Jane's eyes, and they would be like blurry on the outside but focused on their eyes. I wasn't a big fan of that for some reason. It just sort of felt out of place in the entire scheme of the movie. Another thing that I didn't really like was that there were certain elements to the story that they were trying to force upon us. They were trying to force some emotion to make the audience feel certain emotions, but I just didn't feel it at times. It just wasn't as connected as I think they were going for. But the nice thing was that they didn't necessarily take themselves too seriously with this whole film. Like, it was a fairly serious version of Tarzan, considering like the Disney version, but it wasn't necessarily like George of the Jungle like type of comedy or anything like that. And it wasn't super serious. They kind of knew where their range was, where it was fun and adventure, and that was really what it was. They weren't trying to make some over-the-top action film. They weren't trying to make some super dramatic film. They blended the two very well, and I think that was a good aspect to this film. The grade I'm going to give The Legend of Tarzan is a B. Like I said, this was a very surprising film to me. I did not expect it. It was a fun adventure film that I think, again, did not take itself too seriously. The visuals were very, very good. I think a lot of the casting choices were very on point, although some of them were not as very fleshed out in the story. But I think it's definitely worth seeing, and I highly recommend it. Now, I have to go do some crunches because after seeing this film in the shape that Alexander Skarsgård's in, I'm kind of ashamed of myself. So while you're sort of watching these videos, let me know down in the comments below what your favorite version of Tarzan is. Leave that in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share these videos, and we'll see you in the next one.